Let me welcome now to our stage Simon Bernard from Plastic Odyssey. Simon, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You are the co-founder of Plastic Odyssey to tackle ocean pollution by promoting plastic recycling solutions and adapting to developing countries. And in 2021, you have been nominated the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So bravo, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to Live TV. Can you tell us first of all about Plastic Odyssey, please?
So yeah, that was a very good introduction of what Plastic Odyssey is. Actually, we have this 40 meters long research vessel, and we embark a lot of solutions to whether recycle plastic for emerging countries, but also to promote ways to reduce the consumption of plastic, because this is also what we need to do in parallel. And so basically we will go from a country to another, so targeting first Africa, then South America and Asia, to share solutions that are in open source, meaning there is no patent. Anyone can take the blueprints and copy the solutions to start their own local recycling business everywhere. That's the idea.
Okay, so you're not only cleaning up the oceans, but you're spreading the message of how to do that whilst you're going out on these expeditions.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is not really to clean up the ocean, because unfortunately the plastic is not gently floating at the surface. So the best thing we should do and we can do is to turn off the tap and to stop throwing the plastic at sea. So even if we have a boat, we are not trying to put a net and catch anything, because unfortunately it's not possible.
I got it. And let's talk about that a little bit, because every minute 19 tons of plastic are dumped into the ocean, and yet only 1% of this actually floats on the surface. The rest of it sinks, degrades, becomes these terrible microparticles that we've been hearing about. What are the solutions to face this particular problem?
Exactly, that's a big challenge, because the pollution is actually not visible, as you said, and we cannot just wait for people to go and clean up the ocean, because the pollution is everywhere. And so the best things, if we want to turn off the tap, is to act, to have two actions in parallel. The first one is reduce the consumption of plastic, especially in countries where we consume a lot of plastic, the richest countries actually, here, the US, a big consumer, but in parallel, helping countries where there is no waste management whatsoever to implement recycling, or at least collection of the waste, so that it doesn't go into the ocean.
Okay, so let's talk about this from a geographical perspective, because you've just mentioned we need to and I want to ask you about turning off the tap a bit more a little later, but around the world, where is this a problem? I'm guessing some of the countries that are generating plastic pollution, it's not the countries where that plastic is ending up. So where are the areas that are most affected by plastic pollution?
So yeah, obviously we are all part of the problem and all part of the solution somehow. But in terms of plastic going in the ocean, when you look at the studies, it comes mostly from Asia, Southeast Asia, a bit in Africa as well, and South America. That's the three main regions of the world where there are huge accumulations of plastic on land in cities, and this plastic is by the time passing goes in the nature and in the water. So that's also where we need to act urgently, but we also need to keep in mind that in the richest country, especially in the US, there is a lot of plastic that is exported into those countries. It represents 1 million tons per year.
Wow.
On a total of 10 to 15 million tons of ocean pollution. So it's almost 10% of the problem coming from the exportation of the waste from the richest countries.
Okay, but the ocean is a living, moving thing. So you've talked about where the plastic comes from. Where does it end up? Does it end up in those same places, or is it traveling around?
It's actually a big mystery. There is a lot of hypotheses. All what we know is that the plastic is not at the surface, but we don't know exactly where it is. So there are some theories. It's called the mystery of plastic. The scientists, they don't actually know where it is. And the different hypotheses are it should be mostly actually on the seafloor or degraded into microparticles. And probably some of them also are put back on the coastlines,
right?
Because of waves. But what we know for sure is that it's not at the surface.
Okay, so there's this mystery of plastic. We're not sure where it is. But what is not a mystery is where it's coming from. We know that very much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to come back to the point that you mentioned about turning off the tap. Okay, because if there's one way we can sort of stop this problem, it's as early in the pipeline as possible. How can we do that? How can we both turn off the tap, the plastic tap, but continue to create jobs and keep the economy going for many places in the world that depend on this industry?
So yeah, obviously when we did our best to reduce the consumption of plastic, so here when in the richest country, but also in the poorest one, we also can improve waste management, and that's what we are trying to do, developing small-scale solutions so that little facilities, recycling facilities, can be created, and turning the waste to make something durable and useful locally. That's the challenge, because obviously we don't want to make a waste from a waste, so we want to create objects or products that will be long-lasting. And so, for example, you can make building materials, tubes, pipes for the sewage, or tiles for the roofs. You can have quite a lot of applications to the waste. And the challenge to know what can we do with all this waste in each country.
I think that's the thing, because as I've travelled around, we see that these countries, let's say least developed and developing, don't have this infrastructure to recycle the plastic. But if they can do that locally and then create building materials, or even, as you said, sort of like sewage pipes, which is another cause of pollution for the oceans, that's fantastic. Have you seen this emerging throughout the globe, these kind of local solutions, as you've travelled around?
Yes, there are quite a lot of initiatives already existing, and with a business model actually, so creating jobs locally. Usually what they are doing is furnitures or building materials, but also lots of different things. The best example we could see was in Egypt. There are 70,000 people living from plastic recycling. And
70,000 in Egypt.
70,000 people. Okay. It's an informal economy, so the working conditions are not obviously the best. So it needs to be helped, but that's a good example of a place where it can be done actually. And so if we can do it in Egypt, we can do it everywhere basically.
Certainly, and in fact that's a beautiful example of where we see great solutions and things working in those least developing countries that we can maybe even adopt here in the West or in the more developed nations. So thank you for that example. Now I know that you're based here in France, but you're traveling around with Plastic Odyssey, you're circumnavigating the globe. You're a big sailor yourself. What are your next expeditions? What do you have planned next?
So the next phase will be to launch this big expedition. So the vessel is still in dry dock now, in a shipyard in the north of France, and she will set sail this year. So the end of the shipyard is this summer. We will go around France first, and then in November we set sail from Marseille to reach Egypt. So that will be our first port of call. And then eventually going to Africa next year, and then South America to end up in Asia.
Okay, and where can people find out information about this, about your trip, so that they can come and maybe find Plastic Odyssey?
Sure, so we are in all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a website, plasticodyssey.org. And so the idea is really to share this adventure, so we will share a lot of videos and news about the project. So,
Simon, thank you so much for coming and joining us.